Here, I'm supposed to be streaming, so let me check here real quick and make sure everything is going as it should be. I don't have an intro. I'm not trying to do this on a professional level, like a podcast or something, but I definitely. Um, what's going on here? Let's see if I'm hooked up. Okay, it says I'm streaming on all platforms. And so let's get started. Let's talk about this. So my name is Seraphim Schwab, and this is Lunch and Psychedelics with Seraphim. Oh, yeah, I am live. Okay. And I felt it was important to do this just because of some things that happened this weekend. You know, we had an amazing event for the NOAC Society. What is the NOAC Society? The NOAC Society is a 501c3 psychedelic education nonprofit. I organized the Pikes Peak NOAC Society. We've been going for about 7 months now. And one thing it's showing and demonstrating is that a lot of people, let me check my sound here. Yeah, that's better. A lot of people from all walks of life are very interested in what is happening in the realm of psychedelic medicine. But my last Lunch in Psychedelics I did, it was called Initiative 58, and now that it's changed to its final voting form, I felt it was time to do another video. And I'm also going to maybe take some questions. So let me get over to the chat. So if anybody disagrees with me and they're watching, or they have something they want to add, or they want to, comment on this later because they think I'm wrong, let's have a conversation about it, And so back to NOAC. So with NOAC Society, we had the first ever Psychedelic Education Festival for NOAC in Denver on Saturday, and it was beyond a success. Our speaker rooms were beyond packed. Our integration area was beyond packed. There were people in and out all day long, never an empty booth, and it just shows me so many people are engaged with this issue. But we have a problem. And here's one thing that I saw with NOAC. So there was another initiative called 62. And 62 was more of just a decrim, right? Which I understand their position on this. They didn't want DORA and other agencies, this regulated structure, to be part of the decrim conversation, partially because of all the things that happened in the cannabis arena and how nightmarish that became and how big corporations took over and how the little guy can't even get engaged in a dispensary or in the medical cannabis industry. Even the workers now are just being exploited. I mean, they get paid crap for very hard work. And they have to go through this enormous licensing process. It's a joke. But here's one thing that happened with the cannabis guys. People gave up. See, once they got it approved, they just gave up. And so the only people that were still active, the only people that were still working on legislation and changing the laws were those that were in opposition. And they've been whittling away and whittling away and whittling away. I mean, I'm a medical patient, and now we can't grow in cities. We can't have more than 12 plants. Where if you do edibles or anything like that, you definitely need more than 12 plants, right? But they've so restricted it so that you have to go to the big guy. You have to go to the Wall Street traded big mega cannabis corporations because they've taken all over. No, we don't want that to happen with psychedelics. Okay, we don't want exploitation. We want to see people healed. Now, cannabis brought a lot to people's attention. And one of the things I saw at NOAC this weekend was we had the 62 people that oppose the Natural Medicine Health Act, Proposition 122. That's what we're going to vote on November 8th. Proposition 122. I'm going to say it one more time. We're going to vote on Proposition 122 November 8th. And I'm going to tell you how I'm going to vote. I'm not going to tell you how you should vote, but I'm going to tell you how I feel about it, and I'm going to try to keep this within 30 minutes because this is my lunch and I got to get going. But I saw both groups on both sides come together and sit down and have a talk. And they talked about their hurts. They've talked about how this this proposition one failing and the other making it, how it affected relationships. And in one respect, it was pretty sad. It was sad for the people, and they even said that people that they used to have close bonds with now wouldn't even look each other in the face. And I tell you, that's just ego. And they know that. I'm glad I'm not like engaged in those groups. I'm a Johnny come lately. I come from Southern Colorado. We don't have this huge, vibrant psychedelic community like Denver. It's still very illegal around here. There are still law enforcement that are trying to put people in jail for this stuff around here. It's very limited, but trust me, you get into these smaller municipalities, they're still saying reefer madness propaganda to stop dispensaries from happening in my area. Okay, they'll have casinos, but God forbid, not a dispensary. Someone told me at casinos, people wear diapers. And they defecate and pee on themselves so they don't have to get up from machines. But we have certain agencies out here in Teller County that don't want dispensaries. Might interfere with people pooping on themselves in the casinos or something. Anyways, that's a rabbit trail. But I've seen these different groups coming together, and I've seen the hurt. And here's what I want to say. I don't want to be controversial. I don't want to be attackish. There is some level of hypocrisy in resisting Proposition 122, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But here's what I learned this weekend, okay? And this is why I felt like I needed to do this lunch video and why this is important, okay? I'm a veteran. I have PTSD. I'll just put that out there. Pretty severe. For 20 years, I lived in undiagnosed PTSD and ended up incarcerated, ended up addicted to heroin. 10 years ago, I was a homeless heroin addict, okay? Separated from my family, completely hopeless, knowing something was wrong with me, but not able to figure it out. And then through the VA, I got a job through the VA, through their veteran hiring programs. And as I began to work with other veterans and hear their stories and watch what was going on in their lives, I went, wait a minute, that's exactly what's happening to me. So I went and saw some VA docs, and they said, yeah, man, you're jacked up. You're jacked up. But see, that began my process of healing, right? Because in order to get help, in order to, get a right remedy, you need a proper diagnosis. You need that etiology. You need to know where it's all coming from. And I had no idea. I was trying all sorts of things to get well. My family was destroyed. And it started out with me with plant medicine. I got off all pharmaceuticals. Not a big fan of big pharma, big corporations just feeding people poison and paying for studies. And we all know. You know what I'm talking about. And so as I began the journey with plant medicine, as I stopped thinking things like, I had people tell me that we're Baptist. They'd say things like, if you're going to use cannabis to treat your PTSD, you might as well just be doing heroin, Seraphim. And I was like, what? But when you're vulnerable, that shame works really good. It really does. And you begin to think that way. Yeah, like I'm just an addict. I'm worthless. Very hateful, very shameful, the way certain people treated me. But as I began to see gains, as I began to see my life healing, that's when I intersected with psychedelics. And about 2 years ago, I began to microdose psilocybin mushrooms, and it really opened up the box for me to begin transformation in my life. Okay, I don't suffer. I mean, I'm not healed by any means. I still, ask anyone that knows me, I still have, moments and triggers and freakouts and paranoia and things that happen to me. You know what I mean? Because I'm still healing, right? But I have a quality of life now. I went from a homeless heroin addict to a six-figure manager to a therapist to restoration of my family to a home in the mountains, things I never thought that I could have because of plant medicine and psychedelic medicine through the grace of God. And I'm going to tell you that right now. And so when I see people out there that are opposing this proposition, I get their arguments, okay? They have some questions about Dora. Everybody has questions about Dora, guys. Maybe reform is better than just completely not having them involved at all. Maybe this Proposition 122 may create an environment, a regulatory environment that's so uncomfortable for them, they have to start digging deep in how they're going to implement this stuff, and there'll be some change, especially if we're all working together with them. It's easy to sit there and point out and go, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. There were some concerns about Dr. Bronner's and the money that they've poured into Proposition 1. I'm glad. Thank you, Dr. Bronner. Thank you. Everyone that donated to make this a reality, I thank you. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I don't want to feel like a criminal for utilizing medicine that is healing me. And I do, okay? It sometimes triggers my PTSD because, I can go to Denver and get some of my medicines relatively easy, but I have to take it back to a county that's hostile to even cannabis, right? So I can't really work within, the realm of this medicine in a way that I feel would be effective. Why? Because I don't want to go to jail. Because I don't want to lose my job as a manager, because I don't want my family to have to come bond me out of jail because some overzealous law enforcement that doesn't care about healing, doesn't care about medical health, throws me in jail. It's still a federal offense. Now this won't legalize those things, but what it will do is take away any incentive from arresting people. And there may be some people that get, attacked under this legislation in some small Colorado municipality where people just aren't having it. But here's some of the things I want to tell you about. Just a few days ago, they had a report come out that in some states, I think one of them was like Indiana, that the 22 vet a day committing suicide is actually double. All right. So by the time you put your head on a pillow today, there is very likely, statistically going to be 44 people, 44 veterans, 44 men and women who served their country take their life because whatever happened during that time period caused PTSD. Cause depression, and they're not getting appropriate healing. There are not a lot of effective remedies like psychedelics for these disorders. And I know what it's like. I've had people tell me in the past when I was really losing it, you just need to get over it. You're being too extreme. And I told him, I said, what? I wish God for 1 minute would allow you to feel what I feel right now. When I think people are going to kill me, when you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't happen hardly at all anymore. But I used to go through this cycle of paranoia and depression and anxiety that was so intense. And the only way I could slow it down was alcohol, which only was like pouring gasoline on fire. Or other illegal narcotics that would spiral me into some other kind of psychotic episode, or I'd disappear for weeks at a time, and my wife would have to come find me on the street. Very, very terrible way to live, right? You just can't get over it. There's some healing. There's actually brain changes that happen with things like PTSD. I'd encourage you, if you don't know that, to do some research. And so I think about that. And that despite the arguments I hear people saying, that there's money involved, that some corporate interests are going to potentially come in and exploit the law. That happens no matter what. Nobody, find me a legislation or some kind of proposition or anything that people have written that some kind of lobbyist or politician hasn't learned to exploit through the language. We haven't been able to do that yet. That's why so many bills have so many negative impacts. When people look at it and they go, this is a great bill, but they don't look at all the angles. And I'll tell you this, what Proposition 122 does cover a lot. And I'm going to name a few of those things, and I want you to see. One, it's going to open up this medicine to my veteran brothers and sisters. It's going to open up for treatment with dimethyltryptamine, which is in ayahuasca, with ibogaine, which shows amazing progress for treating opiate use disorders, which a lot of us that have PTSD and chronic pain on top of that end up abusing opiates like I did. It's going to open the door to treatment with psilocybin, mushrooms. and mescaline, but not peyote, because they're considering the indigenous populations and how decriminalizing peyote could actually cause problems for the indigenous communities that use it. So peyote's not on that, but mescaline is, which mescaline can be created without necessarily having to utilize peyote. All right, so these 4 medicines are going to be decriminalized, where people can grow mushrooms, people can gift, and then on top of that, they're going to force DORA to regulate care centers, healing centers. Now, we're already seeing this play out in Oregon somewhat, and there were some problems with it. For one, municipalities are trying to ban the healing centers. Well, under Proposition 122, they cannot do that. So places like where I live, Teller County, you're going to have a healing center. I will do everything I can to make sure in this veteran fold, we have a huge veteran population because we like to go out into the mountains. Like we got to get away. We're tired of the insanity that we've experienced in the world. We need healing centers out here in these mountains, and they're going to come. And they can't stop it, okay? They put restrictions on how many healing centers a person can own. Now, some people are saying there's a loophole, and they say person and not corporation. Guys, a person is a corporation. A corporation is considered a person. It's a fictional person, but it's still a person. That's why corporations have rights, per se, okay? I think the legislation is good in defining that people can't come in and own all the healing centers in the state of Colorado. There are some restrictions, but here's the deal. Even if we begin to see this level of exploitation like we saw with the cannabis, that's where we come in and we change the law. We add amendments. We do whatever we can to make sure that they can't do that. We don't just pass this and then just sit down and say, yay, we have psychedelic medicine now. We stay active. We stay engaged. We try to work with indigenous and underserved populations, which even in that, DORA has to regulate in they can't just have one socioeconomic group or one racial group primarily own these things. Like there has to be and they're going to have to form these laws, but it's been spread out where everybody can have an opportunity to get engaged with this medicine, to get engaged with these healing centers. So on one end, we're going to have professional medical centers and licensing, which I think is needed. They asked today, one lady was talking about how many people have heard or experienced sexual assault in the psychedelic communities. Over half the people in the room raised their hand. Because there's a lot of perverts and there's a lot of power abusers out. I don't want to say a lot. I don't want to scare people, but I mean, there is a number of people that should not be administering this medicine to people, that should not have any kind of power over anybody's life because they're abusing it. And there is no recourse. One, because it's illegal. And two, because there's no regulation. See, if somebody, if DORA had control over the licensing of professionals, which here's another good thing. I've said this before that I like about it. You won't have to be an LPC or a licensed social worker. You won't need a master level degree to become a facilitator of this medicine, but you will have to have some training and you will have to be under DORA. I think that's great. You get someone out there that's doing something wrong, that they're treating people poorly, you can initiate an investigation with DORA, and if found out that they're doing nefarious activities, you can do what you can to shut them down. Right? So there's some safety there, some protection there. 2 other things I found out this weekend that I thought are pretty amazing. One, there's a provision in there where, unlike medical cannabis, and I learned this from the Vicente law firm who spoke at the NOAC Emergence Conference, and they said that there's a provision in there where Colorado Department of Children and Family Services, if people are growing mushrooms or they're medical patients or they're using healing centers or they're actually providing, that DCF cannot come in and mess with their family based on that alone. Because they were doing it with cannabis. I was one of those families, right? We had a terrible situation happen because of medical cannabis and Department of Children and Family Services people going after families. So that provision is in there to help stop that. Here's another part that I saw that was really amazing that Vicente Law Firm was talking about. There is a retroactive provision now. They couldn't put it where people get out of jail if they're already in jail for mushrooms. But if they're in the middle of a current case, if they're being prosecuted right now, when this is voted in and is enacted into law, it can affect those cases to get those cases dismissed. So we have some racial justice, we have some socioeconomic justice, we have some protections for families, we have access for veterans. And in all the things that I'm seeing, all the people, this is why we don't want it, I have not seen anything that makes me want to stop. This is why I'm going to vote yes. This is why I encourage everyone to get out there and vote yes. We have a terrible opiate epidemic here in the state of Colorado. And not only do we have an epidemic with fentanyl and other opiates, we have some of the worst mental health services in the nation. In the nation. It's a shame on us, Colorado, but we can change that because I believe psychedelic medicine is going to revolutionize mental health in ways that we have never seen with any other medication, with any other intervention. I promise you that. I've been reading the research, every study that comes out, the studies from Johns Hopkins University and the Berkeley Foundation and all these different groups and they're putting their time and money overseas in Israel and other places. It's there. Maps, it's there. The evidence is there that psychedelic medicine has a higher efficacy rate in treating a number of disorders, and not only psychological disorders. They're finding psilocybin is also there's some promise with Alzheimer's, with brain injuries, with chronic pain. There's a lot there, and we've just begun to scratch the surface, everybody. So the main argument I've heard is people saying, well, indigenous people are going to be affected in a bad way. They're going to be exploited, but I don't see the indigenous people are the ones that are out saying this. It's people that are already working as psychedelic therapists. It's people like for instance, okay, and I'm going to keep saying this, and I'm not trying to poke anyone in the face, but ketamine. Let's look at ketamine. Ketamine right now is let's just say it. It's pretty much a wealthy white person's treatment. Because minimum you got to pay $600 for one session. Most ketamine clinics encourage you to do 3 to 6 sessions, right? Some people are paying $1,200 a session. There is no money for underserved or indigenous populations. There's no ketamine clinics out there on the reservation, or even going to the reservation, or going into poor neighborhoods, or taking Medicaid or Medicare. They're not serving the impoverished communities or indigenous communities at all, as far as I can tell. Maybe there's one or two out there, but I haven't seen it. So here's something I found out when I was getting qualified to do ketamine therapy. I can get a 50 milliliter vial, which when you do intramuscular, I only do 150 milligrams. So, I can get a 50 milligram vial for under $40. And the law is, the I can't even pronounce the word, but you take it under the tongue, and the tablets, and they're even cheaper. So if the medicine is under $40, why are they charging $600? Why aren't they taking ketamine into other communities? Why aren't they going to underserved communities? I actually had someone that works with the NOAC with me, and I'm not going to give details about the clinic, but this person works at a clinic, and we've been trying to form a nonprofit where we can raise money to take ketamine into underserved and indigenous communities. And she asked her clinic if they would help, and they said no. It's a Boulder, Colorado clinic, and they said they got to come up here. Why? Because they're making money hand over fist. But a lot of the same voices are talking about exploitation with Proposition 122, how it's going to exploit people, and how it's going to be, racially unjust and blah. But I don't see them doing anything. And so If there were indigenous communities, strong voices coming out and saying, no, listen, look, this is why this is bad, not seeing it. I'm seeing people that are hurt about the other initiative failing. And so they're trying to tank both. And they're saying, let's try again in 2 years. And I say, do the math. Do the math. At 44 a day, even at 22 a day. And we don't even know how many veterans that can be helped with this yet, because it's not yet been implemented, because a lot of veterans are like me. They don't want to become criminals to treat themselves. Right? But, sorry, my phone just rang off. But even if it was half, so let's say 10 a day, that actually got help. And if you look at the statistics of people that are benefiting from these medicines, it's probably going to be more than that, depending on what gets utilized. But that's a lot of deaths. That's a lot of people while you're waiting to get your perfect legislation, and I can't stomach that. Okay. I know this, that if we don't pass this legislation, I'm going to start working out of the country. And that's another thing. Do you know that veterans that serve this country, whose bodies and minds to some degree were broken, are having to fly to Mexico? They're having to fly out of the country that they served in order to get treatment from organizations like Heroic Hearts. Which I would say go support that organization, right? Because they're doing it. But see, that's still cost prohibitive for a lot of people. And that is just wrong, guys. And we have this opportunity to change that now. And if you don't like the Proposition 122, then let's change it on the fly. Let's use the next 2 years to be just as diligent in making sure the exploitation does not happen, in making sure underserved populations get served. Let's do a little sacrifice on our own and start bringing that medicine down there and start raising money to get discounted medicine to people, right? Or free medicine for people. Let's start doing the work. But it starts with opening the door. And I tell you what, if Proposition 122 does not pass, 122 doesn't pass, I'm going to be heartbroken. I'm not going to stop my psychedelic therapy. I will travel to Denver. I will fly out of the country. But that's shameful. Don't do that to me. Don't do that to my brothers and sisters. We need you to stand with us, to help us get this passed. Now, if some people have some objections, I'm not seeing any comments. I'm not seeing any quotes on my chat right now. Talk to me about it. Maybe I am missing something. But I know this. I'm not a homeless heroin addict today. And I'm here with my family today. And my life is slowly but steadily starting to achieve a quality of life that I have seen other people have, but not have been able to have on my own. And it's through these medicines. And there's no reason. There is no reason why this should be restricted anymore. There is no reason why we cannot get this medicine in the hands of the people. So, through the month of October, I'm going to be going to places and speaking on veterans issue and explaining why we need to get this into the hands of veterans and into the hands of people in the state of Colorado and people nationally, because people are going to come here and get treatment. Colorado's right in the center of the United States. We will become probably the center of psychedelic health in the nation. I promise you that. Oregon's too far away for people to go from the East Coast, but Colorado, people can come from every coast to come here. Everybody loves Colorado. And we can do this. This is our time. This is a historical moment. So not only am I going to be going out and speaking at these various events, but I'm going to hold some events. And I ask that you watch my LinkedIn, or you go to Seraphim Schwab on Facebook, or you go to Tree